As Class 1 railroads in America continue to update their fleets of locomotives and move towards standardized rosters, many rail fans, including myself, have found Class 3 shortline operations the best place to catch more rare and historic power in action. Many shortlines across the country roster first and second generation diesels rarely or never seen on Class 1s in 2025. The heritage of many of these older units is what draws a lot of rail fans to these railroads, and it usually takes some researching to figure out who the previous owners of some of these locomotives were. But there is one shortline railroad that wears lineage very proudly on its sleeve. Welcome to the Hartwell Railroad.
Where else could you see that? It's awesome.
The first movement I'd see on my 2-day trip to the Hartwell was this northbound road train headed to the interchange in Toccoa, Georgia. We'd start the chase in the small town of Livonia. The leader of this train is quite frankly the least interesting unit on the Hartwell roster, at least in my opinion. However, it still does have an interesting backstory. Number 3000 was built in September of 1969 for the MKT. The yellow and black paint scheme it wears now was given to the unit by the St. Lawrence and Atlantic Railroad sometime in the 1990s. If you haven't noticed by now, the trailing unit on this train was owned by the legendary Chicago and Northwestern Railroad. Built in May of 1957, GP9R number 4556 has only worn 2 paint schemes in its life, the blue and white of its first owner, the Rock Island, and shortly after, the CNW. While the unit was trailing on the first day of my trip, I was very happy to see it leading the interchange train back south the following day. Sitting in the siding at Livonia is my favorite unit on the HRT roster, RF&P GP35 number 136. The unit was built for the RF&P in August of 1965 and still wears that original paint all these years later. Unfortunately, it's been a few years since this unit has operated, and although I'd love the chance to see it running, it is unknown if the engine will ever get the needed repairs to make that happen. Nevertheless, getting to see this hometown hero was an awesome moment, and a CNW rolling past it was icing on the cake. Another locomotive was also sitting in Livonia when I was there, GP38 number 1973. I don't think you need any clues to figure out who owned that one. Here's our train passing another fan favorite on the Hartwell, a former Denver and Rio Grande Western unit, marking the 4th fallen flag unit that we'd see. But don't worry, there are still more on the way. I caught back up with the train in Bowersville at a grain mill the railroad serves. Sitting here was another relic, an ex-Southern GP38 high hood that the railroad purchased from Norfolk Southern. Here, the crew would separate the 4556 from the rest of the train and pull one loaded center beam south to another industry. While the crew gets 4556 ready to head south, let's quickly look at some more engines on the Hartwell's roster that I unfortunately did not see moving on my trip. Here is Bessemer and Lake Erie SD7 number 4554, which hasn't ran in a number of years and is used as a part source. The Hartwell Railroad has another operation in the nearby town of Athens. 3 units are on the property at this time, a former Conrail GP38, a former Illinois Central GP10, and the showstopper Chassis System GP9 number 6525. Unfortunately, this one has not been an active member of the roster for well over a decade. While this would be the last time we would see 4556 operate on my trip, I was very happy to see the crew continue headed south to pick up an interchange job from CSX, led by the biggest unit on the roster, EJ&E SD38 number 654. This is the only paint scheme the unit has ever worn and is currently celebrating 55 years of revenue service. After the crew dropped off 654 in Bowersville, they would continue north in the number 3000. This is where I decided to conclude my trip to the Hartwell, but it was certainly a treat to see so many fallen flag survivors in one place. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.